The most powerful werewolf in the realm stood in the corner of the mate-matching ceremony, drenched in cheap cologne and deliberately hunched shoulders, watching yet another she-wolf wrinkle her nose in disgust and walk away, exactly as planned, until her scent hit him like a lightning strike, and for the first time in 5 years of hiding, his carefully constructed mask nearly shattered. Kieran's wolf surged forward, demanding, claiming, and he had to bite down hard on the inside of his cheek to keep from shifting right there in the Moonridge Pack ceremonial hall. Blood filled his mouth. The pain helped. Pathetic. The she-wolf who'd just rejected him, Marissa, he thought her name was, tossed her blonde hair over her shoulder. Why do they even let Omegas into these ceremonies? It's embarrassing. Her friends laughed, the sound like breaking glass. Kieran kept his head down and shuffled his feet, playing the part he'd perfected over 5 long years. Weak. Forgettable. Defective. It was the defective part that really sold it. He'd learned to suppress his wolf's aura so completely that even alphas couldn't sense what he was. To the wolf world, he was broken. A genetic mistake. The kind of wolf that packs tolerated out of pity and pushed to the margins at every opportunity. The kind of wolf no one looked at twice. Which was exactly what he needed. Maybe he's got a trust fund, one of Marissa's friends stage whispered. Otherwise, I don't know why he bothers showing up. They drifted away, already forgetting him, and Kieran allowed himself a slow breath. 23 rejections at this gathering alone. A new personal record. The Moonridge Pack would remember him as that pitiful Omega who. Then the scent hit him. Pine and steel, wild berries and wood smoke, with an underlying note of something ancient and fierce. His wolf went absolutely still, the way predators do when they've spotted prey, except this wasn't prey. This was mate. Kieran's head snapped up before he could stop himself. She stood near the entrance, scanning the room with eyes that missed nothing. Not pretty, not in the conventional sense. A scar ran from her left temple down to her jaw, pulling one corner of her mouth into a permanent half-smirk. Her dark hair was cropped short, practical. She wore leather pants and a fitted jacket instead of the flowing dresses the other she-wolves favored, and she moved like a fighter, weight-balanced, always aware of exits and threats. Beautiful, his wolf insisted. Ours. Kieran forced his shoulders back into their hunch, made himself look away. 5 years of planning couldn't unravel because of biology. Even if every instinct screamed at him to cross that room. Anne. That's Sarah Blackwood, someone nearby murmured. Heard she got kicked out of 3 packs for fighting. Too aggressive, another voice agreed. What she-wolf wants to spend her life fighting? She should be having pups, not breaking jaws. No one will mate her. She's practically feral. The gossip washed over Kieran like white noise. He couldn't stop watching her, even though watching was dangerous. She rejected a drink from a server with a curt nod, her gaze still sweeping the room. When it landed on him, he felt the impact like a physical blow. Their eyes locked. Something passed between them, electric and undeniable. Her nostrils flared slightly, she'd caught his scent. But unlike every other she-wolf tonight, she didn't wrinkle her nose in disgust. Instead, her eyes narrowed in suspicion. Kieran looked away first, retreating into his Omega persona. Heart pounding, he shuffled toward the refreshment table, trying to blend into the crowd. This was bad. She was looking at him too closely, seeing too much. Move, Omega. A hand shoved him hard, and Kieran stumbled, barely catching himself on the table's edge. His cheap cologne, chosen specifically because it was overpowering and awful, wafted up in a cloud. Sorry, he mumbled, keeping his voice soft and apologetic. You should be. Darius, the Moonridge Pack's alpha, loomed over him with 3 of his enforcers. Big men, confident in their power, the kind who enjoyed reminding lesser wolves of their place. This ceremony is for wolves with viable mates. Not defects. The enforcers chuckled. One of them, a brute named Marcus, cracked his knuckles. Maybe we should teach it some manners. Remind it where Omegas belong. Kieran's wolf stirred, dangerous and deadly. One word, one tiny slip in his control, and he could tear these fools apart before they took their next breath. He'd killed stronger wolves for lesser insults. The Alpha King didn't tolerate. You're not the Alpha King right now, he reminded himself savagely. You're no one. You're nothing. Stay in character. I'll leave, Kieran said quietly, backing away. I didn't mean to cause trouble. Too late for that. Marcus grabbed his shoulder, fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. The other enforcers moved to surround him, blocking him from the rest of the room. This wasn't just going to be a warning. They were going to hurt him, probably badly enough to make an example. Darius smiled, all teeth and cruelty. Take him outside. Quietly. They were halfway to the side exit, hands rough on Kieran's arms, when a voice cut through the noise like a blade. Let him go. Sarah Blackwood stood 5 feet away, arms crossed, expression bored. But Kieran could see the tension in her stance, the way her weight had shifted forward, ready for violence. Marcus laughed. This doesn't concern you, Blackwood. Go find some other pack to get kicked out of. I said, Sarah repeated, her voice dropping to something cold and lethal, let him go. Or what? Darius stepped forward, his alpha aura rolling out like a wave. Most wolves would have submitted immediately, dropped their eyes and shown their throat. Sarah didn't even blink. Or I'll make you, she said simply. The tension ratcheted up to breaking point. Kieran could feel the attention of the room shifting toward them, wolves sensing potential violence. This was spiraling out of control, and worse, it was drawing attention to him, exactly what he couldn't afford. Stand down, he said quietly to Sarah. It's not worth it. Her eyes flicked to his, sharp and assessing. Maybe not. But I'm bored, and I don't like bullies. Bitch, Marcus snarled, releasing Kieran to step toward her. I'll teach you. He didn't finish the sentence. Sarah moved like water, smooth and inevitable, catching his wrist and using his momentum to send him crashing into a table. Food and drinks went flying. Someone screamed. The other 2 enforcers rushed her. Stupid. Kieran could have told them it was stupid, but they were already committed. Sarah dropped low, sweeping the first one's legs out from under him, then drove her elbow into the second one's solar plexus. Both went down hard. The entire ceremony had stopped to watch. Darius's face went dark with rage. Enough. The Alpha's command rolled through the room, backed by power. Wolves dropped to one knee automatically, compelled by the dominance in his voice. Sarah stayed on her feet, but only barely. Her knees shook with the effort of resistance. Kieran, still playing his role, collapsed to the ground immediately. But his wolf was fighting him, clawing to the surface, furious at seeing their mate threatened. Gold flickered at the edges of his vision. Control, he commanded himself desperately. Control or everything is lost. Both of you, out, Darius snarled. You're banned from Moonridge territory. If I see either of you again, I'll consider it an act of war. Sarah grabbed Kieran's arm and hauled him to his feet, her grip surprisingly gentle despite the violence she'd just displayed. Can you walk? Yes, he managed. The touch of her hand on his skin sent electricity racing through him. His wolf was howling, desperate for more contact, more of her. They made it outside before she released him, and Kieran had to lock his knees to keep from swaying. The cool night air helped clear his head, but not enough. Not nearly enough. Thank you, he said, still keeping his voice soft, submissive. You didn't have to do that. I know. Sarah studied him in the moonlight, her scarred face thoughtful. What's your name? Kieran. Well, Kieran, word of advice, find a different pack. Moonridge isn't worth the trouble, and Darius has a mean streak a mile wide. She turned to leave. Wait. The word escaped before he could stop it. His wolf wouldn't let her just walk away. She paused, looking back over her shoulder. What? Kieran groped for something to say, anything that wouldn't reveal too much. Why did you help me? Sarah's expression shifted, something vulnerable flickering across her face before she locked it down. I've been where you are. Rejected, dismissed, treated like I don't matter. She shrugged. Figured you could use. She didn't finish. Two of Darius's enforcers came around the corner, Marcus and one other, both looking furious and humiliated. They must have recovered quickly and followed them out. Thought you could embarrass us and walk away? Marcus's eye was already swelling from where he'd hit the table. The Alpha said get out. He didn't say we couldn't teach you a lesson first. Sarah's stance shifted, ready for another fight. But there were more of them this time, and in the shadows, Kieran could see others emerging. 6 wolves, maybe more, all looking for payback. This was going to get bloody. His wolf surged forward, demanding action. They were threatening his mate. 5 years of hiding, 5 years of careful planning, none of it mattered against the primal need to protect what was his. Kieran felt his control slipping. Felt the gold bleeding into his eyes, his aura starting to leak through the suppression he'd maintained for so long. Power built in his chest, massive and absolute, the kind of power that could make these fools bow or break them where they stood. Marcus grabbed for Sarah. She caught his wrist and twisted, but there were too many of them. One grabbed her from behind. Another went for her legs. They were going to take her down through numbers and coordination, and his wolf was screaming. Kieran moved without thinking. He caught the wolf reaching for Sarah's legs and threw him, not pushed, through, 15 feet into the side of the building. The impact left a dent in the wall. The wolf holding Sarah from behind suddenly found himself staring into eyes that blazed pure molten gold, power rolling off Kieran in waves that made the air shimmer. Release her, Kieran said, and his voice carried the weight of absolute command, the kind of dominance that couldn't be faked or learned. The kind you were born with. The kind only an Alpha King possessed. The enforcer's hands fell away from Sarah like she'd burned him. He stumbled back, instinctive terror written across his face. The others were already running, their wolves recognizing a threat their human minds couldn't comprehend. Then Sarah's hand touched his arm, just a brief contact, steadying, and that touch cut through the rage like a knife. Their eyes met. Gold to dark brown. For a heartbeat, she saw him. Really saw him. Not the Omega, not the disguise, but the truth underneath. Her lips parted in shock and something else, something that made his chest ache. Then Kieran slammed his control back into place, forcing the gold to recede, stuffing his power back down into the cage where he'd kept it for 5 terrible years. His shoulders hunched. His aura disappeared. He became the forgettable Omega again. But it was too late. What, Sarah breathed, her hand still on his arm, was that? Wanting to see what would happen next, subscribe to this channel to get to listen to more of our upcoming exciting stories. Click on the subscribe button now. Thank you. Chapter 2. Sarah couldn't sleep. She lay in the small room she'd rented above the Moonridge Tavern, staring at the ceiling, watching shadows shift across the wooden beams. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw it again, that flash of gold in Kieran's eyes, the wave of power that had rolled off him like heat from a forge. No Omega had that kind of power. No Omega could throw a full-grown enforcer 15 feet like he weighed nothing. She'd seen Alphas, fought Alphas, been rejected by enough of them to recognize their strength. What she'd felt from Kieran wasn't Alpha power. It was something else entirely. Doesn't matter, she muttered to the empty room, throwing an arm over her eyes. Not your problem. You're leaving in the morning anyway. Except she wasn't leaving. She'd told herself she would, but dawn had come and gone, and she was still here. Still in Moonridge. Still thinking about a strange Omega with secrets in his eyes and the kind of loneliness she recognized because she wore it like a second skin. Sarah rolled out of bed with a curse, pulled on her clothes, and headed downstairs. The tavern was mostly empty at this hour, mid-morning, between breakfast and lunch. A few wolves nursed drinks in corners, shooting her suspicious glances. She was used to it. Coffee, she told the barkeep, sliding onto a stool. He grunted and poured, sliding the cup across without meeting her eyes. Also used to that. She was halfway through the bitter brew when she heard the sound, children's laughter, bright and wild, coming from the street outside. Something in her chest tightened. She'd always loved that sound, even knowing she'd never have pups of her own. Cursed wolves didn't get to have families. Sarah left coins on the bar and followed the noise. Behind the tavern, in a small courtyard that backed onto the woods, 3 pups were playing while a familiar figure watched from a bench. Kieran sat with terrible posture, shoulders hunched, looking like he might blow away in a strong wind. But his eyes were soft as he watched the children chase each other in circles. One of the pups, a little girl with tangled red hair, tripped and scraped her knee. She started to cry, and before Sarah could think about what she was doing, she crossed the courtyard and knelt beside the child. "Let me see," Sarah said gently, examining the scrape. "Not too bad. You'll survive." The girl sniffled, but stopped crying. "Are you a warrior?" "I am. Will you teach me to fight?" Sarah smiled despite herself. "Maybe someday. Right now, you need to be more careful when you run. Watch where you step." "Okay." The girl brightened immediately and ran back to her friends. When Sarah looked up, Kieran was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Something warm and sad at the same time. "You're good with them," he said quietly. "I like kids." She moved to the bench, leaving space between them but close enough to talk. "What are you doing here?" "Watching them." He ducked his head, that submissive gesture she was starting to recognize. "The pack doesn't really want me around, but nobody pays attention if I'm out here. The pups don't care what I am." Sarah studied him in the morning light. He was thin, almost gaunt, with dark circles under his eyes like he didn't sleep well. His clothes were cheap and ill-fitting, the kind you bought at second-hand shops. Everything about him screamed poverty and defeat. Everything except the way he moved. She'd caught it just now, when he'd shifted on the bench, a fluid grace that disappeared the moment he realized she was watching. And his hands, when he gestured, held a precision that spoke of training. Extensive training. "How long have you been in Moonridge?" she asked. 3 weeks. "I'll move on soon." He paused. "Thank you again for last night. You didn't have to help me. You already thanked me." Sarah kept her voice casual. "Where are you from originally?" "North." He didn't elaborate, and something in his tone suggested she shouldn't push. "You?" "Everywhere. Nowhere." She watched the pups play, throat tight. "I was born in the Silvermoon pack. But that was a long time ago." Kieran went very still beside her. "Silvermoon," he repeated softly. "I heard about what happened there." "I'm sorry. 5 years ago." The words tasted like ash. "I was the only one who survived. Been wandering ever since." "That must be hard. Being alone." "You get used to it." "Liar. You never got used to it." "What about you? Any family?" "Not anymore." The pups' laughter filled the silence between them. Sarah wanted to ask more, about last night, about what she'd seen, about who he really was. But something stopped her. Maybe it was the bone-deep exhaustion in his eyes. Maybe it was recognizing another wolf who'd learned that survival meant keeping secrets. "Those pups," Kieran said after a moment, nodding toward the children. "They're orphans. The pack doesn't really take care of them. They just exist." Sarah's jaw tightened. "What do you mean?" "No one's claimed them. Their parents died in skirmishes, or left the pack, or..." He shrugged. "Darius doesn't see the value in feeding mouths that can't contribute. They get scraps, hand-me-downs. Sleep in the old storage building." Rage, sudden and hot, flared in Sarah's chest. She knew what it was like to be unwanted, but children? That's not right. "No," Kieran agreed quietly. It's not. Something in his voice made her look at him sharply. For just a second, she saw fury in his eyes, deep and cold and absolutely lethal. Then it was gone, replaced by that defeated Omega expression. But she'd seen it. Just like she'd seen the gold last night. Who are you? She wanted to demand. But one of the pups ran over, a boy, maybe 6 years old, with serious dark eyes. Kieran, the boy said, can you tell us the story again? About the moon goddess? Please, the red-haired girl chimed in, bouncing on her toes. The one about the first wolves. Kieran glanced at Sarah, almost apologetic. They like the old stories. I don't mind. The pup settled around them like it was routine, and Kieran began to speak. His voice changed when he told stories, lost that uncertain, halting quality and became rich and sure. He spoke of the moon goddess creating the first wolves, of the ancient packs and the old laws, of honor and duty and the sacred bond between alpha and pack. Sarah found herself caught up in the tale despite knowing it by heart. But it wasn't just the story, it was the way he told it. With reverence. With the kind of respect for tradition that you didn't find anymore, not in modern packs that had forgotten the old ways. When he finished, the pups applauded, and the boy asked, will you teach me to hunt later? If your other lessons are done, Kieran agreed. He pulled a small package from his pocket, bread and cheese, wrapped in cloth. Here. Share this with your sisters. The children took the food with eager thanks and ran off. Sarah watched them go, then turned to Kieran with raised eyebrows. That was your lunch, she said. I'm not that hungry. But his stomach betrayed him with a low growl, and he had the grace to look embarrassed. Sarah stood abruptly. Come on. What? I'm buying you lunch. Don't argue. She started toward the tavern, then paused when he didn't follow. That wasn't a request, Kieran. He followed, though reluctantly, and she had to slow her pace so he could keep up with his shuffling gait. Except twice she caught him moving normally, long, confident strides, before he seemed to remember himself and hunched over again. Too graceful when he forgets to act, she noted. Too straight when he thinks no one's watching. The tavern served a decent stew, and Sarah ordered 2 bowls along with bread and ale. Kieran protested weakly, but she ignored him. When the food came, he ate with careful, precise manners that no street Omega should have. The way he held his spoon, the way he broke his bread, it spoke of formal dining, of training in etiquette. You have good table manners, Sarah observed. Kieran froze for a fraction of a second. My mother taught me. Before she died. Tell me about her. She was. He paused, something painful crossing his face. She believed in doing things right. Said that how you carried yourself mattered, even when, especially when, no one was watching. Sounds like a wise woman. She was. His voice went soft. She would have liked you. The words hung between them, intimate and unexpected. Sarah felt her cheeks heat and covered it by drinking her ale. This was dangerous territory. She didn't do feelings, didn't do connections. Everyone she'd ever cared about died. The tavern door slammed open, making both of them tense. Darius strode in with 4 of his enforcers, his expression dark. His eyes swept the room and landed on their table. On Sarah specifically. Blackwood, he said, crossing to them with deliberate menace. Thought I told you to leave my territory. I'm having lunch, Sarah replied evenly. Last I checked, that wasn't illegal. It is when I say it is. Darius planted his hands on their table, leaning close. His alpha aura pressed down, making the other wolves in the tavern drop their eyes. You embarrassed me last night. Made me look weak in front of my pack. You did that yourself. His hand shot out, grabbing her wrist hard enough to hurt. Watch your mouth. Sarah felt Kieran's chair scrape back, felt him start to rise, but she shot him a warning look. The last thing either of them needed was another scene. Let go, she said quietly. No, I don't think I will. Darius's smile was cruel. I've been thinking, Blackwood. You've got spirit. Strength. The kind of bloodline I could use in my pack. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to become my chosen mate. My Luna. And you're going to be grateful for the honor. The tavern had gone absolutely silent. Every wolf was watching, ears pricked, waiting to see how this would play out. Sarah looked at the hand on her wrist, then up at Darius's smug face. No. That wasn't a request. Neither was my answer. She twisted her wrist in a move that should have broken his grip, but he was ready for it, his other hand grabbing her arm. His enforcers moved in, boxing her against the table. You don't get to say no to an alpha, Darius growled. Not in my territory. You want to stay in Moonridge? You want a roof over your head and food in your belly? Then you'll accept my claim, or I'll make your life so miserable you'll beg for it. Sarah felt her wolf rise, felt her control starting to slip. She could fight, she was good enough to take 2 of them, maybe 3. But not all of them, not Darius. And fighting would only make it worse. She said no. Kieran's voice was quiet, almost conversational. But something in his tone made everyone in the tavern turn to look at him. He stood beside the table, still hunched, still playing the Omega. But his eyes had gone hard. Darius laughed. The defect has opinions? Sit down, Omega, before you what? Kieran took a step forward, and despite his posture, despite the submissive slouch, there was something threatening in the movement. She gave you her answer. Honor it. Honor? Darius released Sarah and rounded on Kieran. You're going to talk to me about honor? You're not even a real wolf. You're nothing. A genetic mistake that should have been culled at birth. Sarah saw it happen, saw Kieran's control waver, saw gold flicker in his eyes for just an instant. His hands clenched into fists at his sides. Walk away, Kieran said softly. Just walk away, and we'll forget this happened. Or what? Darius stepped into Kieran's space, using his height and bulk to intimidate. His alpha aura rolled out like a physical force, crushing down on everyone in the room. Sarah felt it like a weight on her shoulders, making her wolf whine and submit. But Kieran didn't move. Didn't flinch. Just stood there, taking the full force of an alpha's dominance, and somehow, impossibly, didn't break. Last warning, Kieran breathed. Darius grabbed him by the throat. Then several things happened at once. Kieran's hand came up, not to claw at Darius's grip, but to press against the alpha's chest. Just a press, light and almost gentle. Darius flew backward. He crashed through 2 tables and hit the far wall hard enough to crack the plaster. His enforcers stared in shock. The entire tavern erupted in chaos, wolves jumping to their feet, chairs scraping, voices raised in confusion and alarm. Sarah saw Kieran standing there, his hands still raised, and for just a second, 1 heartbeat, she felt it again. That massive, overwhelming power. Not alpha. Something far older. Far more dangerous. Then he hunched his shoulders and shuffled backward, his eyes wide with fake fear. I'm sorry, he stammered, his voice cracking. I didn't mean to, I don't know what happened. But Darius had felt it too. The alpha pulled himself up, fury and something else, fear, written across his face. What are you? He demanded. I'm no one, Kieran whispered. Please, I didn't mean. You're lying. Darius stalked forward, his wolf so close to the surface that his eyes gleamed amber. No Omega has that kind of strength. No Omega could stand against my dominance without breaking. What are you? Kieran backed toward the door, stumbling over chairs, playing up his weakness. But Sarah could see the calculation in his eyes, the way he was measuring distances and exits. Guards. Darius roared. Stop him. I want him in chains. I want to know exactly what we're dealing with. Sarah moved without thinking. She grabbed a chair and swung it into the nearest enforcer, then caught Kieran's arm. Run. They burst out of the tavern into chaos. Word had already spread. Wolves were pouring into the street, blocking their path. Darius's voice echoed behind them, commanding his pack to give chase. This way. Sarah pulled Kieran into an alley, her mind racing through the mental map she'd made of Moonridge's layout. If they could reach the forest, they had a chance. She was fast, and something told her Kieran was faster than he let on. They ran through narrow passages between buildings, Kieran keeping pace easily despite his supposed weakness. Sarah noticed he wasn't breathing hard, wasn't stumbling. He moved like a trained fighter, avoiding obstacles with precision, never losing his footing. The forest loomed ahead. 20 yards. 10. They broke through the tree line just as a howl rose behind them, the hunt call. Darius had released his wolves. Keep going. Sarah gasped, though she wasn't the one who needed the encouragement. There's a ravine about a mile north. We can lose them there. Sarah. Kieran grabbed her hand, pulling her to a stop in a small clearing. We need to talk. Are you insane? They're hunting us. I know. And before they catch up, before this gets any worse, you need to understand. He ran a hand through his hair, and for the first time, she saw real fear in his eyes. Not of Darius. Of something else. What you saw back there. What you've been seeing. You're right to be suspicious. Kieran. I'm not what I appear to be. The words came out rushed, desperate. I've been hiding, pretending, because I had to. Because showing my real self would mean. The bushes rustled. They both spun, falling into fighting stances, but it wasn't Darius's wolves who stepped into the clearing. 5 rogues emerged from the shadows, dressed in dark clothes, moving with military precision. Sarah's wolf snarled. Rogues were dangerous, unpredictable. These ones looked trained. Organized. The lead rogue, a scarred male with cold eyes, stepped forward. Then he did something that made Sarah's blood run cold. He dropped to one knee and bowed his head. Your Majesty, the rogue said quietly. The other 4 followed suit, all kneeling, all showing their throats in the ultimate sign of submission and respect. To Kieran. Sarah's mind went blank. Your Majesty. That's what he'd said. Your Majesty, like Kieran was, like he was. No, Kieran said sharply, his voice transformed. No longer soft or uncertain. This was a voice that commanded armies, that expected instant obedience. I gave explicit orders. No contact unless I initiated it first. Forgive us, sire. The lead rogue didn't raise his eyes. But we received intelligence that you were in danger. We couldn't stand by and let you be captured by that upstart alpha. I had the situation under control. With respect, Your Majesty, you did not. The rogue's jaw tightened. We've been tracking you for weeks, waiting for the right moment. But then she appeared, his eyes flicked to Sarah, cold and assessing. The last silver moon heir. The final piece of their plan. Sarah's wolf rose, hackles raised. What are you talking about? Don't, Kieran said, his voice sharp with warning. To her or the rogues, she wasn't sure. She needs to die, sire. The lead rogue rose smoothly to his feet, and the others followed. She's the key they've been looking for. As long as she lives, you're in danger. The conspiracy can use her. You will not touch her. Kieran moved between Sarah and the rogues, and this time he didn't hide it. Power radiated from him like heat, making the air shimmer. His eyes blazed pure gold, and his voice carried the weight of absolute authority. That is a command from your king. Stand down. King. The word echoed in Sarah's mind, rearranging everything she thought she knew. The grace, the knowledge, the power. The way he'd withstood Darius's dominance. The way these rogues, clearly soldiers, knelt to him like he was. "Oh gods," Sarah breathed. "You're the Alpha King. The one who disappeared 5 years ago." Kieran turned to face her, and she saw the truth written in his eyes. Saw the weight of a crown he'd set aside, the burden of a throne he'd abandoned. Saw loneliness and duty and a desperate, hopeless kind of hope. "Yes," he said simply. "My name is Kieran Blackthorn. I am, the Alpha King of the Northern Territories. You were supposed to be dead. I let everyone believe that. It was safer." He took a step toward her, and she saw something vulnerable break through the command in his expression. "Sarah, I need you to understand." "Kill her now, sire," the lead rogue interrupted. "Before Darius's wolves arrive. She's already seen too much, and if the conspiracy discovers she's alive, if they figure out what she is to you." I said an "oh." Kieran's voice cracked like thunder, and the rogues flinched back. "You will not harm her. That is final. But your majesty. Leave." Kieran didn't take his eyes off Sarah. "Return to the safe house and wait for my signal. I'll handle this." The rogues hesitated, clearly unhappy, but they couldn't disobey a direct order. They melted back into the forest like shadows, leaving Sarah alone with a king she'd thought was a broken Omega. The silence stretched between them, heavy with revelation and betrayal and something else. Something that made Sarah's chest ache. "You've been lying to me," she said finally. "To everyone." "Yes." "Why?" "Because 5 years ago, my own council tried to kill me." Kieran's voice was rough with old pain. "My uncle, my most trusted generals, they orchestrated a coup. Slaughtered anyone loyal to me, took control of the throne, and hunted me like an animal. I barely escaped with my life. So you've been hiding. Not just hiding. Searching." He moved closer, and Sarah forced herself not to step back. "Searching for the truth. For evidence. For loyal wolves who could help me take back what's mine. And searching for..." He stopped, jaw tight. "For what?" "For a mate." The words came out quiet, almost broken. "For someone whose bond would be strong enough to help me reclaim my throne. Someone who could stand beside me and not break under the weight of what's coming." Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs. She thought of the pull she'd felt toward him, the inexplicable connection. The way her wolf had recognized him even when her mind didn't understand. "That's why those rogues mentioned me," she said slowly. "The conspiracy. They know about the mate bond. They know if you find your mate, your power increases." "Yes. And they've been hunting anyone who might be that mate, killing them before I could find them." His eyes burned into hers. "But you survived, Sarah. You survived the Silvermoon Massacre, a massacre I now know was orchestrated by the same wolves who stole my throne. They knew what you were. What you could become. What am I? The last heir of an ancient bloodline. One of the old families, with power that's been dormant but never lost." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and touched her scarred cheek with infinite gentleness. "You're meant for more than wandering, Sarah. More than fighting and surviving and being alone. You're meant." Howls erupted from the forest behind them. "Close. Too close." "We're out of time," Kieran said grimly. "Darius is coming, and his entire pack is with him. We need to move." But Sarah stood frozen, her world tilting on its axis. "Who are you?" she whispered. "Not what, who? The man or the king? The Omega or the monarch? The person who'd fed orphans his own lunch or the ruler who commanded soldiers?" Kieran's hand fell away from her face. Gold eyes met brown, and in them, she saw everything, the loneliness, the burden, the desperate need for someone to see past the crown to the man beneath. "I'm someone who's been alone for 5 years," he said quietly. "Someone who's forgotten what it feels like to be seen. To be known. And then you looked at me, and for the first time since I lost everything, I felt. The bushes exploded with movement. But these weren't Darius's wolves. More rogues poured into the clearing, dozens of them, surrounding them in seconds. Sarah's wolf snarled, ready to fight, but Kieran's hand on her arm stopped her. Because these rogues were different. They wore the colors of the Northern Territories, the royal insignia hidden but present. And they weren't attacking. They were kneeling. All of them, heads bowed, throats exposed, waiting for their king's command. The lead rogue from before stepped forward, his expression grim. "Forgive the deception, Your Majesty. But we had to be sure the Silvermoon heir wouldn't betray you. We had to test her loyalty." Sarah whirled on Kieran. This was a setup. All of it? No. Kieran looked stricken. "Sarah, I swear, I didn't know they were going to." "We've been watching you both," the rogue continued. "Watching to see if she would stand with you or against you. And now we have our answer." He smiled, cold and satisfied. "She'll make an excellent hostage." Before Sarah could react, 3 rogues grabbed her arms. She fought, snarling and snapping, but they were trained and numerous. They forced her to her knees, a blade appearing at her throat. "Let her go." Kieran's roar shook the trees. Power exploded from him, no longer contained, and the rogues holding Sarah stumbled back. But more took their place, and the blade pressed harder against her skin. "Stand down, Your Majesty," the lead rogue said calmly. "Or we'll be forced to eliminate the threat she poses. The conspiracy wants her dead. We're just following through on their plan, with a few modifications. She's too valuable to kill outright. But as leverage to ensure your cooperation." Kieran looked between Sarah and the armed rogues, and she saw the moment his control shattered. Gold eyes blazed. The air pressure dropped. Every wolf in the clearing, including Sarah, felt the weight of a king's true power pressing down like the hand of a god. "I said," Kieran repeated, his voice layered with something ancient and terrible, "let her go." The force that exploded from him sent rogues flying like leaves in a storm. The wolf holding the blade to Sarah's throat went airborne, crashing into a tree with a sickening crunch. Kieran was moving before they hit the ground, power and fury incarnate, no longer hiding anything. This was the Alpha King. And he was magnificent. Sarah watched him fight, truly fight, and understood why his enemies had needed an army to bring him down. He moved like violence made poetry, every strike precise and devastating. Rogues fell before him, unable to withstand even a fraction of his power. Within seconds, the clearing was full of unconscious or groaning wolves. Kieran stood in the center of the carnage, chest heaving, eyes still blazing gold. Then he turned to Sarah, and the fury melted into something vulnerable and afraid. "Are you hurt?" he asked hoarsely. "No." Sarah touched her throat where the blade had pressed. "I'm fine." "But Kieran." More howls. Darius's pack, drawn by the commotion. And from the other direction, more movement in the trees. More rogues, these ones wearing different colors. Enemy colors. They were surrounded. Sarah rose to her feet, fell into fighting stance beside Kieran. "Guess we're doing this together." "You don't have to," he said quietly. "You can walk away. Tell them I forced you, held you hostage. They'll believe you. You'll be safe. Safe and alone." Sarah met his eyes, saw herself reflected there, another survivor, another fighter, another lost wolf looking for something to belong to. "I'm tired of safe, Kieran. I'm tired of alone. They'll come for you. The conspiracy, the rogues, everyone who wants me dead. Being with me, standing beside me, it means becoming a target. I've been a target my whole life." Sarah smiled, sharp and fierce. "At least this time I'll know what I'm fighting for." Something blazed in Kieran's eyes, hope and heat and a desperate kind of wonder. Then the trees exploded with movement, and there was no more time for words. Only fighting. Only survival. Only the two of them, standing back to back as the world descended into chaos, finally, not alone. If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting impactful daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Chapter 3. The first rogue came at Sarah from the left, and she ducked under his swing, driving her elbow into his ribs. Bone cracked. He went down hard. Behind her, she felt Kieran move, felt the displacement of air, the surge of power, and heard bodies hitting the ground. They fought like they'd been doing it together for years instead of seconds, anticipating each other's movements, covering each other's blind spots. It should have been impossible. They barely knew each other. But her wolf knew his. Recognized him on some primal level that had nothing to do with logic and everything to do with instinct. Left. Kieran barked, and Sarah spun, catching a blade that would have buried itself in her spine. She twisted the rogue's wrist until he screamed and dropped the weapon, then kicked him into two of his companions. More kept coming. Too many. These weren't Darius's enforcers, these were trained soldiers, moving with coordinated precision. And their intent was crystal clear. Kill the Silvermoon heir. Capture the king. We can't hold them off forever. Sarah shouted, blocking another attack. Her arms were starting to ache, her breath coming harder. She was good, but she wasn't superhuman. Kieran, however, was something else entirely. He moved through the rogues like death incarnate, no longer bothering to hide his strength. Each strike was devastating, efficient, born of years of combat training. But he was holding back, she realized. Even now, even fighting for their lives, he wasn't using his full power. Because that would mean fully revealing what he was. Not just to her, but to Darius's wolves, who she could hear crashing through the forest toward them. Kieran. A rogue broke through her defense, blade aimed at her throat. She twisted, but not fast enough. Kieran was there. His hand closed around the rogue's wrist with crushing force, and this time he didn't hold back. Power exploded from him in a visible wave, golden light that sent every wolf in the clearing to their knees. The rogue holding the blade to Sarah's throat collapsed, unconscious before he hit the ground. The forest went silent except for labored breathing and groans of pain. Kieran stood in the center of the carnage, power radiating from him like heat from a star. His eyes blazed pure gold, and for the first time, Sarah felt the full weight of what he was. Not just an alpha. Not even just a king. The Alpha King. The most powerful wolf in the realm. The one whose bloodline traced back to the first wolves, the ones blessed directly by the moon goddess herself. Sarah. His voice was rough, strained. We need to move. Now. She nodded mutely, still processing what she just witnessed. They ran, leaving the unconscious rogues behind, deeper into the forest. Behind them, she heard Darius's wolves enter the clearing, heard their exclamations of shock and confusion. They ran until Sarah's lungs burned and her legs screamed for rest. Finally, Kieran pulled her into a small cave hidden behind a waterfall, the kind of place you'd never find unless you knew exactly where to look. Inside, the cave was dry and surprisingly warm. Someone had been here before. There were supplies stacked against one wall, blankets, dried food. A safe house. Kieran released her hand and moved to the cave entrance, listening. After a long moment, he seemed satisfied they hadn't been followed. He turned to face her, and the gold had faded from his eyes, leaving them dark and haunted. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I never wanted you to be dragged into this. Sarah's wolf was still keyed up from the fight, adrenaline and something else, something primal and possessive, coursing through her veins. She forced it down, forced herself to think clearly. Those rogues, she said. They called you, Your Majesty. They knew exactly who you were. Yes. Because you're Kieran Blackthorn. The Alpha King who disappeared 5 years ago. She crossed her arms, kneading the barrier between them. Everyone thinks you're dead. There were reports of your body being found, funeral rites, everything. All staged. Kieran moved to the supplies and pulled out a water skin, offering it to her. When she didn't take it, he set it aside. My uncle Malcolm orchestrated a coup. Turned half my council against me, bribed my generals, undermined my authority for months before he made his move. When he finally struck, it was swift and brutal. He killed anyone he suspected of loyalty to me, advisors, servants, friends. My mate, his voice caught. The woman I was supposed to marry. He murdered her in front of me to break my spirit before he killed me. Sarah felt something twist in her chest. But you survived. Barely. A handful of loyal guards helped me escape, died buying me time to run. I've been in hiding ever since, moving from pack to pack, playing the Omega because it's the last thing anyone would expect. He met her eyes, and she saw the weight of 5 years of loneliness and survival. I've been searching for 2 things, evidence to prove the conspiracy, and a mate bond strong enough to restore my full power. The mate bond increases in Alpha's strength, Sarah said slowly, pieces clicking into place. But for a king, it would be exponentially more. The old magic works differently for royal bloodlines. A true mate bond doesn't just increase my power, it completes it. Makes me whole in a way I haven't been since. He trailed off, jaw tight. Since they killed Alara. My first intended mate. The cave suddenly felt too small. Sarah moved to the entrance, staring out at the waterfall, trying to process everything. That's why those rogues wanted me dead. Because your wolf recognized me. Because we're mates. Kieran's voice was soft behind her. Yes. And the conspiracy knows. They know that if we complete the bond, you'll be strong enough to take back your throne. Which is why they've been hunting anyone who might be my mate for 5 years. Killing them before I could find them. He moved closer, though he didn't touch her. But you survived, Sarah. You survived the Silvermoon massacre, survived 5 years of wandering, survived being rejected and cast out. You're stronger than they anticipated. Sarah's hands clenched into fists. The Silvermoon massacre. You said it was orchestrated by the same wolves who dethroned you. Yes. Malcolm and his conspirators wanted to eliminate the old bloodlines, the families who still held to the ancient ways and would support my claim. Silvermoon was one of the oldest packs, with a lineage that traced back almost as far as mine. He paused. They were also known for producing powerful mates for royal wolves. My great-grandmother was Silvermoon born. The cave spun around her. Sarah grabbed the rock wall for support, old memories rising like bile in her throat. I watched them die, she whispered. My mother, my father, my siblings. We were having dinner when they came, rogues, we thought. But they were too organized, too precise. They knew exactly who to kill, exactly where our defenses were weak. Sarah. I hid. Like a coward, I hid in the cellar while my family was slaughtered above me. The words poured out, 5 years of guilt and grief she'd never told anyone. I heard my mother screaming my name, heard my father fighting, heard my little sister crying for me to help her. And I did nothing. I just hid in the dark and covered my ears and prayed to the moon goddess to make it stop. You survived. Kieran's voice was gentle, understanding. You did what you had to do to survive. Everyone I love dies. The words exploded from her, raw and anguished. Don't you see? I'm cursed. Silvermoon died. Every pack I've joined since has suffered losses, accidents, tragedies. Anyone who gets close to me, her voice broke. I can't be your mate, Kieran. I can't be anyone's mate. I'm poison. I'm death. You're not. Yes, I am. She whirled to face him, and she knew her eyes were wild, desperate. Those rogues attacked because of me. Because I'm connected to you now, because they think we might bond. How many more will die? How many more innocents will get caught in the crossfire? Kieran took a step toward her, and she saw her pain reflected in his eyes. Sarah, listen to me. No. She backed away, needing distance, needing air. I reject the bond. I reject it, do you understand? I won't be the reason more people die. I won't be responsible for. It doesn't work like that. His voice was quiet, but there was an edge of desperation in it. The mate bond isn't something you can just reject. It's written into our souls, into our wolves. You feel it, don't you? The pull. The recognition. She did. Gods help her, she did. Even now, with fear and grief tearing her apart, she felt drawn to him. Felt her wolf crying out for his, demanding she stop fighting and accept what the moon goddess had chosen. I don't care what I feel, Sarah said, forcing steel into her voice. I'm not going to be your mate. I'm not going to be a queen. I'm not going to be responsible for a kingdom when I can't even keep myself alive from one day to the next. Kieran flinched like she'd struck him. For a long moment, he just stared at her, and she saw her rejection land like a physical blow. Saw the hope that had been building in his eyes since they'd met die a slow, painful death. All right, he said finally, his voice carefully neutral. If that's what you want, I'll respect your choice. Just like that? Just like that. He turned away, moving to the supplies, putting distance between them. I won't force you into anything, Sarah. Not the bond, not a future you don't want. You've had enough taken from you without me adding to it. The noble, selfless response should have made her feel better. Instead, it made her want to scream. Or cry. Or both. What happens now? She asked. Now we figure out how to stay alive. Kieran pulled out a map, spreading it on the cave floor. The conspirators know you exist. They'll hunt you regardless of whether you accept the bond or not. You're too dangerous to them, a potential mate, a Silvermoon heir, a symbol of the old bloodlines they tried to eradicate. So I'm dead either way. Not if I can help it. He met her eyes, and despite the pain she'd just caused him, she saw determination there. Protection. I'll get you somewhere safe. There are packs loyal to me, hidden strongholds where the conspiracy can't reach. You can live there, protected, until... Until what? Until you take back your throne? Until you find another mate? Sarah laughed bitterly. I'll just be a prisoner in a prettier cage. You'll be alive. The simple words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Alive but alone. Alive but always looking over her shoulder. Alive but never truly free. Story of her life, really. There's another option, Kieran said quietly. We go on the offensive. Stop running and start fighting. Gather the loyalists, build an army, take back what was stolen. That's suicide. Your uncle has had 5 years to consolidate power. He controls the capital, the armies, the noble houses. He controls lies and fear. Kieran's voice hardened. But we have the truth. And we have something he can never replicate, the true royal bloodline. Even without the mate bond fully realized, I'm still the rightful king. There are wolves who remember the old ways, who believe in legitimate rule. We find them, unite them, and we have a chance. Sarah wanted to argue, wanted to point out all the ways that plan could fail. But she'd heard the stories, knew the legends. The Alpha King wasn't just a title, it was a sacred bond between wolf and crown, blessed by the moon goddess herself. Malcolm might have the throne, but he didn't have the bloodline. He didn't have the legitimacy. And legitimacy mattered to the old wolves. The ones who still believed. It's still a long shot, she said. It is. But it's better than hiding forever. Kieran rolled up the map. I'm not asking you to fight with me, Sarah. I'm not asking you to be my mate or my queen. I'm just asking you to let me keep you safe until this is over. Can you do that? She should say yes. Should take the protection he offered and disappear into whatever safe house he prepared. Let him fight his war while she stayed hidden. But Sarah Blackwood had never been good at hiding. Even 5 years ago, even in that cellar, she'd hated every second of her cowardice. Had promised herself that if she survived, she'd never hide again. "I want to fight," she heard herself say. "I want to make them pay for what they did to Silvermoon. To my family. To every innocent wolf they've murdered to maintain their power." Kieran's eyes widened. "Sarah. I'm not doing it for you," she added quickly. "I'm not accepting the mate bond or agreeing to be your queen. But I can fight. I'm good at it. And I have just as much right to vengeance as you do." He studied her for a long moment, and she couldn't read his expression. Finally, he nodded. "All right. We fight together. As allies, if not as mates." "Allies," she agreed, ignoring the way her wolf howled in protest at the distance she was maintaining. "So what's the plan?" "First, we need to." A sound outside the cave made them both freeze. Voices, muffled by the waterfall but definitely there. Multiple wolves, searching. Kieran moved to the cave entrance with fluid grace, peering through the water. His expression went hard. "It's Darius," he said quietly. "With about 20 wolves." "Anne," he tensed. "They're talking to someone. Someone in a hooded cloak." Sarah moved beside him, careful to stay hidden. Through the shimmering water, she could make out shapes. Darius stood in a small clearing, his posture deferential, unusual for an alpha on his own territory. The hooded figure before him was smaller, more compact, but radiated an authority that made even Darius's wolves uneasy. "Guarantee his cooperation?" Darius was saying, his voice barely audible over the rushing water. "The Alpha King will do anything to protect his potential mate." The hooded figure's voice was cultured, educated, with an accent Sarah recognized from the Northern Territories. "Capture the female, and he'll come for her. It's his greatest weakness, that bleeding heart of his, that pathetic need to protect the innocent." Sarah's blood ran cold. They were talking about her. About using her as bait. "And in exchange?" Darius asked. "In exchange, you'll have full control of Moonridge territory. We'll recognize your claim, provide military support to expand your borders, and grant you a seat on the Royal Council when Lord Malcolm solidifies his control." The hooded figure moved closer to Darius, and something about the graceful movement made Sarah's wolf bristle with recognition. "All we ask is that you deliver them both alive. The king we need for leverage. The female is to be eliminated once she's served her purpose." Eliminated. Darius sounded almost regretful. "She would have made a strong mate. She's too dangerous to leave alive. The old bloodlines must be purged entirely if we're to build the new order." The hooded figure turned, and for just a second, Sarah caught a glimpse of pale skin and cruel eyes beneath the hood. "Do we have an agreement, Alpha Darius?" "We do." Darius clasped hands with the conspirator, sealing the bargain. "My wolves are already tracking them. They can't have gone far." "Excellent. I'll wait here for word of their capture." "And Darius?" The hooded figure's voice dropped to something deadly. "Don't fail. Lord Malcolm doesn't tolerate incompetence, and I didn't travel all this way to return empty-handed." The group dispersed, Darius and his wolves heading deeper into the forest, the hooded figure remaining in the clearing with 2 guards. Sarah and Kieran pulled back from the cave entrance, meeting each other's eyes in the dim light. "They're using you as bait," Sarah whispered. "Just like I said. Anyone close to you dies." "No." Kieran's jaw was set, determined. "Anyone close to me is targeted. There's a difference. And we're not going to let them win." "How?" "They know we're in the area. They're hunting us. Darius has home territory advantage and the backing of your enemies." Sarah felt panic rising in her chest. "We need to run. Get as far from here as possible. If we run, they'll just keep hunting. They'll never stop." Kieran turned to face her fully, and she saw calculation in his eyes. The strategic mind of a king, not just a survivor. But if we turn the tables, if we use their plans against them? What are you thinking? That hooded figure. They're not just any conspirator, I recognize the accent, the bearing. That's someone high up in Malcolm's organization. Someone with authority and knowledge. He smiled, sharp and dangerous. Someone worth capturing. Sarah stared at him. You want to kidnap one of your uncle's top people? Here? Now? When we're outnumbered and hunted? It's the last thing they'll expect. They think we're running scared, trying to hide. They don't know, he paused, something flickering in his eyes. They don't know about you. About what you can do. I'm just a fighter. A decent one, but... You're Silvermoon. Kieran moved closer, intensity radiating from him. The old bloodlines have gifts, Sarah. Powers that haven't been seen in generations. Your family was known for producing shadow walkers, wolves who could move unseen, blend with darkness, strike from nowhere. That's just a legend. Is it? How many times have you survived when you shouldn't have? How many times have you escaped impossible situations? He held her gaze. How did you really survive that cellar 5 years ago? How did trained killers miss you when they searched? Sarah's mouth went dry. She remembered that night, remembered pressing herself into the darkest corner, remembered desperately wishing she could disappear, remembered feeling something shift inside her, something that made her feel like she was part of the shadows themselves. She'd always thought it was shock. Trauma. Her mind playing tricks. But what if it wasn't? I don't know how to control it, she whispered. If it even exists. Then we figure it out together. Kieran's hand found hers, and the contact sent warmth racing up her arm. You said you wanted to fight. This is how we fight, smart, strategic, using every advantage we have. We take that conspirator, we make them talk, and we get the evidence we need to start turning wolves back to our side. Our side. Like they were a team. Like her rejection of the mate bond hadn't changed his commitment to keeping her alive and fighting beside her. Sarah looked at their joined hands, then up at his face. Saw determination and hope and something that made her chest ache. This is insane, she said. Probably. We could die. We could. Or we could win. He squeezed her hand gently. What do you say, Sarah Blackwood? Ready to stop running and start fighting back? Every instinct screamed at her to refuse. To protect herself, to keep her distance, to not let anyone else get close enough to die because of her curse. But she was so tired of running. So tired of being alone. And if she was going to die anyway, if the conspirators were going to hunt her regardless of her choices, then she wanted it to mean something. She wanted to make them pay for Silvermoon. For her family. For every innocent wolf they'd slaughtered. All right, Sarah said, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her. We do this. But Kieran? She met his eyes. If something goes wrong, if they capture me, don't come for me. Don't let them use me against you. Promise me. I can't promise that. Then we don't do this. Kieran's jaw tightened, frustration and pain warring in his expression. You rejected the mate bond, Sarah. But that doesn't change what you are to me. It doesn't change that my wolf will tear apart anyone who tries to hurt you. I can't just let you. You have to. She stepped closer, urgent. Because if I'm going to fight with you, I need to know that my life doesn't mean more than the mission. That you won't sacrifice everything you've worked for just to save me. Your life means everything, he said roughly. Don't you understand that? With or without the bond, with or without you accepting it, you matter. You're not expendable. Everyone's expendable in war. Not to me. The words were quiet but absolute. Never to me. They stood there, inches apart, the weight of everything unsaid hanging between them. Sarah felt her wolf pushing at her control, demanding she close the distance, accept what he was offering. Accept him. But she couldn't. Not when everyone she loved died. Not when accepting meant watching another person she cared about suffer because of her. We should move, she said finally, pulling away. Plan the ambush. Figure out how to capture a conspirator without getting killed. Kieran nodded, but his eyes held disappointment and understanding in equal measure. All right. Let me show you what I have in mind. They spent the next hour planning, using the supplies in the cave to map out the clearing, identify potential approaches, discuss contingencies. Kieran was a natural strategist, seeing angles and possibilities Sarah would have missed. And when they practiced the actual takedown, him playing the conspirator, her using her instincts to move quietly, strike from shadows, something clicked. She could do it. The shadow walking, or whatever it was. When she stopped trying so hard, when she let instinct guide her, she found she could move with unnatural silence, could seem to vanish when the light hit right, could strike from angles that should have been impossible. It was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. You're a natural, Kieran said, watching her materialize from a shadow she shouldn't have been able to hide in. With training, with practice, you could be unstoppable. Or I could get us both killed on our first attempt. There's that optimism I've come to love. The word hung between them, love. Kieran's eyes widened slightly, like he hadn't meant to say it. Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs. I didn't mean, he started. It's fine. She turned away, checking her makeshift weapons. Just a figure of speech. Sarah. We should go. That conspirator won't wait forever. They left the cave as dusk fell, using the growing darkness to their advantage. Sarah found that the shadows welcomed her now that she'd acknowledged what she could do, wrapping around her like old friends. Beside her, Kieran moved with equal stealth, his king's training evident in every careful step. They reached the clearing where Darius had made his deal to find the hooded figure still waiting, now alone except for 2 guards. The conspirator paced impatiently, checking a pocket watch, muttering about incompetent alphas and wasted time. Kieran caught Sarah's eye and nodded. Time to move. She melted into the shadows, becoming part of the darkness itself. Her heart raced but her hands were steady as she circled around, approaching from the conspirator's blind spot. The guards never saw her coming. She struck fast and silent, pressure points that dropped them without a sound. The hooded figure spun at the soft thud of bodies hitting ground, hand reaching for a weapon. Kieran stepped from the trees, power radiating from him, eyes blazing gold. Hello, cousin, he said softly. It's been a while. The conspirator froze, and slowly reached up to push back their hood. Sarah's breath caught. It was a woman, beautiful and cold, with Kieran's dark hair and sharp features. Family resemblance was unmistakable. Kieran, the woman breathed, shock giving way to fury. You're supposed to be dead. Funny, I keep hearing that. Kieran's smile was all teeth. Tell me, Lyra, does my uncle know his own daughter is doing his dirty work? Or does he still believe you're the loyal princess, too delicate for politics? Lyra's hand shot to her weapon, but Sarah was already there, blade at the woman's throat, shadows still clinging to her like armor. Don't, Sarah warned quietly. I'm not as patient as he is. Lyra's eyes widened, taking in Sarah's appearance, the scar, the feral edge, the shadows that moved wrong around her. Silvermoon, she whispered. The last heir. Father said you were all dead. Surprise, Sarah said flatly. You won't get away with this, Lyra snarled. Darius knows you're here. My guards will wake. The entire territory is hunting you. Then we'd better move fast. Kieran stepped forward, pulling rope from his pack. You're going to tell us everything, cousin. Every detail of the conspiracy, every name, every plan. And then you're going to help us take it all down. I'll die first. That can be arranged, Sarah said. She felt cold, distant, like someone else was speaking through her. Someone who'd watched her family die and learned that mercy was a luxury she couldn't afford. But first, you're going to suffer. For Silvermoon. For every wolf your father's murdered. For 5 years of hunting innocent people. Something in her voice must have convinced Lyra this wasn't a bluff. The woman paled, truly afraid for the first time. Sarah, Kieran said quietly. We need her alive. I know. Sarah's hand didn't waver. But she doesn't need to be comfortable. Bind her. They worked quickly, tying Lyra and gagging her before she could call for help. They were dragging her toward the forest when voices echoed through the trees, Darius's wolves, returning from their search. Move! Kieran hissed. They ran, hauling their prisoner between them, using every trick they knew to cover their trail. Behind them, shouts of alarm rose as someone discovered the unconscious guards. They'd just made it back to the cave when Sarah heard it, a howl, sharp and urgent. Not Darius's wolves. Something else. Something that made her blood run cold with recognition and dread. What is that? Kieran asked, eyes scanning the darkness. Sarah closed her eyes, listening to the howl's pattern. An old signal, one she hadn't heard in 5 years. One she thought had died with Silvermoon. It's a warning, she whispered. The old packs use it when, her eyes snapped open, horror flooding through her. They're coming. All of them. The entire conspiracy is mobilizing. How many? Sarah met his eyes, saw her own fear reflected there. All of them, Kieran. Every conspirator, every corrupted pack, every wolf your uncle controls. They're coming for us. And in the distance, like thunder rolling across the sky, she heard them, hundreds of wolves, an army descending on Moonridge territory. Coming for their king. Coming for the last Silvermoon heir. Coming to end this once and for all. If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting impactful daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Chapter 4. We need to run, Sarah said, already moving to gather supplies from the cave. If the entire conspiracy is mobilizing, we can't stay here. We need to. It's too late for that. Kieran stood at the cave entrance, his face grim as he watched the forest. Listen. Sarah froze, straining her senses. Then she heard it, the systematic sounds of wolves moving through the woods. Not the chaotic rush of a hunt, but the precise coordination of trained soldiers forming a perimeter. They were already surrounded. How many? She whispered. Too many. Kieran turned back to their prisoner. Lyra's eyes gleamed with triumph even through her gag. He yanked it down. You knew. You knew they were coming. Of course I knew. Lyra's smile was vicious. You think I came here alone? Father has been tracking you for months, Kieran. We knew you were in the region. All we needed was to confirm your location and flush you out. Her eyes slid to Sarah. Finding the Silvermoon heir was an unexpected bonus. Father will be pleased. Your father is a traitor and a murderer, Sarah snarled. My father is a visionary. He understands that the old ways are dying, that the monarchy is obsolete. He's building something better, a council of equals, where power is shared, not hoarded by one bloodline. Lyra's voice rang with conviction. Kieran would have led us all to ruin with his outdated ideals. Father saved the kingdom. By slaughtering innocents? By destroying entire packs? Kieran's voice was deadly quiet. That's your vision of the future? Necessary sacrifices. The old bloodlines were too dangerous, too resistant to change. They had to be. The rest of her words were cut off as Kieran replaced the gag with brutal efficiency. But the damage was done. They all knew what was coming. We fight our way out, Sarah said, checking her weapons. We've done it before. Not against these numbers. Kieran moved to the supplies, pulling out what weapons they had. But we can make them pay for every inch. There has to be another way. A tunnel, a back exit. There isn't. He met her eyes, and she saw resignation there. Acceptance. This is it, Sarah. This is where we make our stand. No. The word came out fierce, desperate. I didn't survive 5 years just to die in a cave. We find a way out. We. The waterfall exploded inward. Wolves poured through the entrance, dozens of them, moving with military precision. Sarah and Kieran fought back to back, but it was like fighting the tide. For every wolf they dropped, 2 more took their place. Sarah felt claws rake across her ribs, teeth snap at her throat. She twisted, struck, kept moving, but there were too many. A heavy body slammed into her from the side, driving her to the ground. She snarled, fighting to rise, when she felt the dart hit her neck. Tranquilizer. The world swam, her limbs going heavy and unresponsive. Sarah. Kieran's roar shook the cave. She felt his power surge, felt wolves flying through the air, but then another dart hit him. And another. Even a king couldn't fight off that much sedative. The last thing she saw before darkness claimed her was Kieran falling to his knees, his eyes locked on hers, his lips forming words she couldn't hear. I'm sorry. Sarah woke to the smell of silver and iron. Her head pounded, her mouth tasted like copper, and every muscle in her body screamed protest as she tried to move. It took several long seconds to realize she couldn't. Heavy chains bound her wrists and ankles, the metal burning against her skin. Silver. They'd bound her in silver. Easy. Kieran's voice, rough and strained, came from beside her. Don't fight it. You'll only hurt yourself worse. Sarah forced her eyes open. They were in a large stone chamber, torches burning in sconces along the walls. She was chained to a pillar in the center of the room, and Kieran was bound to another pillar facing her, close enough to talk but too far to touch. He looked like hell. Blood matted his dark hair, bruises covered his face and arms, and the silver chains had burned angry red welts into his wrists. But his eyes were alert, assessing, looking for any weakness they could exploit. How long? Sarah asked. 6 hours, maybe 7. They moved us while we were unconscious. We're in the Blackstone Fortress, my uncle's stronghold in the Northern Territories. That's 3 days' travel from Moonridge. They used vehicles. Cars, like humans do. Kieran's jaw tightened. They've been planning this for a long time, Sarah. This wasn't opportunistic. This was coordinated. Before Sarah could respond, heavy doors at the far end of the chamber swung open. Wolves filed in, dozens of them, all wearing the formal dress of the Northern Court. They took positions along the walls, silent and watchful. Then Darius entered, looking smug and satisfied. He'd cleaned up since the forest, wearing fine clothes that marked him as part of the conspiracy now, not just a backwater alpha making deals. Comfortable? He asked, stopping a few feet from Sarah. I wanted to thank you, Blackwood. You made this so much easier than it had to be. When you warned your precious king about the army coming, you led us right to your hiding spot. Sarah's stomach dropped. What? Oh, you didn't know? Darius's smile widened. The howl you heard? That was me. An old Silvermoon signal I learned from studying your dead pack's customs. I knew you'd recognize it, knew you'd panic and reveal your position trying to warn him. He leaned closer, voice dropping to a cruel whisper. You did this to yourself. Your loyalty was your downfall. You bastard. I'm a survivor. Just like you're supposed to be. Darius straightened, addressing Kieran now. And you, your majesty. 5 years playing the pathetic Omega. Did you enjoy it? Groveling, being rejected, eating scraps. Was it worth it? Kieran said nothing, his face carved from stone. No clever response. No royal decree. Darius laughed. You're finished, Blackthorn. The great Alpha King, reduced to this. Lord Malcolm is going to enjoy breaking you. As if summoned by his name, another figure entered the chamber. Lord Malcolm Blackthorn was an older version of Kieran, same dark hair shot through with silver, same sharp features, Same commanding presence. But where Kieran's eyes held warmth and honor, Malcolm's were cold calculation. He wore the royal crown, the one that should have been Kieran's, and robes of state that marked him as the current ruler. Nephew. Malcolm's voice was cultured, almost pleasant. You're looking well, considering. Silver suits you. Uncle. Kieran's voice was flat, emotionless. Still wearing stolen crowns? Stolen? I prefer inherited. You were weak, Kieran. Soft. You would have destroyed everything our family built with your naive idealism and outdated honor codes. Malcolm circled them like a predator. I did what was necessary to save the kingdom. You murdered innocents. Destroyed entire bloodlines. Started a reign of terror. I established order. Malcolm's composure cracked for just a second, fury bleeding through. The old families were holding us back, clinging to ancient traditions that had no place in the modern world. I freed us from their chains. And yes, some died. But more have thrived under my rule. The kingdom is stronger, more unified. United through fear, Sarah said. Through oppression. Through the systematic elimination of anyone who disagrees with you. Malcolm's cold gaze settled on her. Ah. The Silvermoon heir. I heard rumors you'd survived, but I didn't believe it. You were supposed to be dead with the rest of your cursed bloodline. Sorry to disappoint. Oh, you haven't disappointed. You've provided me with the perfect opportunity. Malcolm smiled, and it was the most terrifying expression Sarah had ever seen, not because it was cruel, but because it was genuine. He truly believed he was right. Tomorrow, we hold a public execution. The false king and the last of the old bloodlines, executed together for treason against the crown. It will send a message to anyone still harboring thoughts of rebellion. You'll create martyrs, Kieran said quietly. Kill us publicly, and you'll inspire the very rebellion you're trying to prevent. No one remembers martyrs in a generation or two. They'll remember the peace and prosperity that followed. Malcolm turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Kieran? I want you to know, this isn't personal. You were my brother's son. I loved you once. But you were born for a world that no longer exists. This is mercy, truly. I'm freeing you from a burden you were never equipped to carry. He left, taking his wolves with him. Darius lingered for a moment, shooting Sarah a look that might have been regret before following. The doors slammed shut, leaving them alone in the chamber. Sarah tested her chains again, wincing as the silver burned deeper. There has to be a way out. A weakness in the chains, a guard we can overpower. There isn't. Kieran's voice was hollow, defeated in a way she'd never heard. This chamber was designed to hold dangerous prisoners. The chains are reinforced silver, the walls are 3 feet of solid stone, and the guards outside are Malcolm's personal elite. We're not escaping, Sarah. I don't accept that. You don't have a choice. He met her eyes, and she saw despair there. Raw, aching despair. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I dragged you into this. You could have run when you had the chance, could have stayed away from me, but his voice broke. I was selfish. I wanted you close. And now you're going to die because of it. Stop. Sarah's throat was tight. This isn't your fault. Isn't it? Everything I touch turns to ash. Elara died because of me. My loyal guards died because of me. Entire families were slaughtered because they supported me. And now you, he closed his eyes, turning his face away. Everyone I care about dies, Sarah. Just like you said about yourself. We're the same, you and I, cursed to destroy the people we love. Kieran, look at me. When he didn't, she raised her voice. Look at me. He did, reluctantly, and she saw tears tracking down his bruised face. You want to know why I really rejected the mate bond? Sarah asked. It wasn't just about my curse. It was because I was terrified. Terrified of caring about someone again, of letting someone matter enough to hurt me when they died. But here's the thing, rejecting the bond didn't change anything. You still matter. You still, she swallowed hard. I still feel it. That pull. That recognition. My wolf knows yours, and nothing I say or do will change that. Then I've condemned you twice over. The bond will only make your death harder. Or it could save us. The idea crystallized even as she spoke it. You said a true mate bond would restore your full power. Make you strong enough to reclaim your throne. That's not possible now. We're chained in silver, surrounded by enemies, hours from execution. So we accept it now. Right now, while we still can. Sarah leaned forward as far as her chains allowed. Complete the mate bond, unlock whatever power it's supposed to give us, and use it to break free. Kieran shook his head. Even if we could complete the bond under these conditions, the power increase isn't instant. It takes time, proximity, physical contact. The legends talk about weeks or months of the bond strengthening before. The legends also talk about silver wolves, Sarah interrupted. About shadow walkers and ancient magic that's been dormant for generations. What if the old stories are right? What if accepting the bond unlocks more than just enhanced strength? That's a huge gamble. It's the only gamble we have. She met his eyes, letting him see her resolve. I've been running my whole life, Kieran. From my past, from my pain, from any chance at happiness because I was too scared of losing it. But I'm done running. If I'm going to die, I want it to mean something. I want to die fighting, not chained to a pillar. And I want, her voice softened. I want to know what it feels like. Just once. To be chosen. To be someone's mate. To be yours. Sarah. Do you want me? The question was blunt, vulnerable. Not as a political alliance or a power boost. Just, do you want me? Yes. The word was immediate, absolute. From the moment I saw you, even when I was trying to hide, trying to play the Omega, yes. My wolf knew. My heart knew. You're fierce and loyal and so damn beautiful it hurts to look at you. You care about orphaned pups and defend the weak and you see through every wall I've built. So yes, Sarah Blackwood. I want you. I choose you. I've been choosing you since that first night, even knowing you might never choose me back. The chains suddenly felt less important. The stone chamber, the guards outside, the execution waiting tomorrow, all of it faded to background noise. Then I choose you too, Sarah whispered. I accept the mate bond. I accept you, Kieran Blackthorn. All of you, the king, the Omega, the man who feeds his lunch to orphans and fights for people who can't defend themselves. I choose you. The bond snapped into place like a physical thing, a golden thread connecting their souls. Sarah gasped as sensation flooded through her, Kieran's emotions, his pain, his hope, his love. It was overwhelming and perfect and terrifying all at once. And then power surged. Not gradually, not over weeks or months, but immediately. It ripped through Sarah like lightning, setting every nerve ending on fire. She felt her wolf rising, but it wasn't the broken, damaged thing she'd always known. This was something else. Something ancient and powerful and right. Silver light exploded from her body. The chains shattered. Kieran's chains broke a heartbeat later, gold light answering her silver. They both fell to their knees, gasping, as magic older than memory rewrote their very beings. The legends, Kieran breathed, staring at Sarah in wonder. They were true. You're not just Silvermoon descended. You're a silver wolf. A true one. Sarah looked down at her hands and saw them glowing with ethereal light. Power thrummed through her veins, vast and terrifying and completely under her control. She could feel Kieran through the bond, could sense his strength combining with hers, amplifying it. Together, they were unstoppable. The doors burst open. Guards poured in, dozens of them, weapons raised. Sarah moved. She didn't run or fight in any conventional sense. She became shadow and light, moving between the guards like smoke, striking with precision that was both instinct and centuries of inherited knowledge. These were her ancestors' techniques, the lost arts of the Silvermoon Pack, flowing through her as if she'd trained her entire life. Beside her, Kieran fought with his full power unleashed. Not the Omega, not the Hidden King, but the Alpha King in his prime. Gold light blazed around him as he tore through the guards, his authority so absolute that some of them simply dropped to their knees in submission. They fought their way through corridors of stone, leaving unconscious bodies in their wake. Alarms blared. More guards came, but they couldn't stop the combined might of a true mated pair from the oldest bloodlines. They were almost to the exit when Malcolm appeared, flanked by his personal guard and Darius's wolves from Moonridge. Impossible, Malcolm breathed, seeing the silver and gold light surrounding them. The bond shouldn't work that fast. The old magic is dead. The old magic never died, Kieran said, his voice resonating with power. You just forgot how to listen for it. Stand down, uncle. I don't want to kill you, but I will if you force my hand. You're outnumbered. One mated pair against an army. Not an army, a small voice piped up. A family. Sarah's heart stopped as three small figures appeared in a doorway behind Malcolm's forces. The orphaned pups from Moonridge, the red-haired girl, the serious boy, and their younger sister, stood defiant despite their size. Children, Malcolm said dismissively. Guards, remove them before. I am Lily Stormborn, the red-haired girl announced, her young voice carrying clearly. Daughter of General Marcus Stormborn, who died defending the true king. I am Thomas Ironhide, the boy added. Son of General Helena Ironhide, who gave her life to protect the throne. And I'm Emma, the youngest whispered. Our parents were heroes. And you killed them. Malcolm's face went pale. The general's children. I thought they were hidden. Kieran's smile was fierce and proud. Hidden in plain sight, in the last place you'd think to look, among the rejects and unwanted. That's why I stayed in Moonridge, uncle. Not to hide, but to protect them. To keep them safe until the time was right. More figures emerged from the shadows. Adults this time, wearing the colors of a dozen different packs, all moving to stand with the children. The loyalists, Malcolm hissed. Your reign of terror ends tonight, Kieran said. Stand down, and I'll show mercy. Fight, and I'll show you the same mercy you showed the Silvermoon Pack. For a long moment, Malcolm stood frozen, calculating odds. Then his hand moved toward his weapon. Darius was faster. The Moonridge Alpha grabbed Malcolm's wrist, stopping him. No. It's over. Can't you see that? The true king has returned, the old bloodlines are awakening, and your support is crumbling. Surrender with dignity, Malcolm. While you still can. You dare. I dare because I'm smart enough to know when a cause is lost. Darius released Malcolm and took a step back, then dropped to one knee. I bend the knee to the true Alpha King, Kieran Blackthorn. I was wrong to oppose you, and I will accept whatever judgment you deem fit. Other wolves followed Darius's lead, first a trickle, then a flood. Guards, nobles, even some of Malcolm's personal elite. They knelt, showing their throats, acknowledging Kieran's authority. Malcolm stood alone, fury and disbelief warring on his face. It's over, uncle, Kieran said gently. Please. Don't make this harder than it has to be. For a second, Sarah thought Malcolm might actually surrender. Might choose mercy over pride. Then he moved, faster than thought, a blade appearing in his hand as he lunged, not at Kieran, but at Sarah. If I can't have the throne, Malcolm snarled, neither can you. Kill the mate, break the bond. Kieran threw himself between them. The blade meant for Sarah's heart buried itself in Kieran's chest instead. No. Sarah's scream tore through the fortress. Silver light exploded from her, raw and uncontrolled, sending Malcolm flying back into the wall with bone-crushing force. Kieran collapsed, blood spreading across his shirt in a growing stain. Sarah caught him before he hit the ground, cradling him against her chest. "No, no, no," she chanted, pressing her hands to the wound. "You can't, you're not allowed to." "Worth it," Kieran gasped, his face going pale. "You're safe. That's what matters. You're not dying. I won't let you. I just found you, I just accepted the bond, you can't leave me now." Tears streamed down her face, mixing with his blood. Through the bond, she felt him fading. Felt his life slipping away despite her desperate grip on him. "Sarah." His hand found her face, thumb brushing away tears. "Thank you. For choosing me. For seeing me. For being everything I needed. Stop talking like you're dying. I love you." The words were soft, final. "Remember that. When you're queen, when you're leading our people into the future, remember that you were loved. Completely. Eternally." His hand fell away. His eyes closed. Through the bond, Sarah felt his heartbeat stutter and slow. "No." The word came out feral, primal. "You don't get to leave me. You don't get to make me choose you and then die. I won't allow it." Power surged through her, not just hers, but his too, their bond pulling his strength into her to keep it from dissipating into nothing. The silver light around her body intensified until it was blinding. Sarah threw back her head and howled. It wasn't a normal wolf's howl. It was the ancient call of the Alpha Queen, the mate cry that could summon the moon goddess herself. It echoed through the fortress, through the territories, across every pack and every wolf who still remembered the old ways. The call of the silver wolf, crying for her dying mate. And the moon goddess answered. Light filled the chamber, not silver or gold, but pure white, radiant and holy. It flowed through Sarah into Kieran, mending torn flesh, restarting his stilled heart, pulling him back from the brink of death through sheer force of will and ancient magic. The wound in his chest closed. Color returned to his face. His eyes opened, blazing gold and very much alive. "Sarah," he whispered hoarsely. She sobbed and kissed him, tasting salt and blood and life. "You're not allowed to die. Ever. Do you understand? That's a direct order from your Alpha Queen." Kieran laughed weakly, then pulled her close. "Yes, my queen. As you command." Around them, every wolf in the fortress had dropped to their knees, heads bowed, overwhelmed by the display of power they'd just witnessed. Even Malcolm, crumpled against the wall with broken ribs and a shattered arm, stared at them with something like awe. The true king and queen had risen. And the old magic, the ancient bond between wolf and crown, blessed by the moon goddess herself, had returned to the realm. If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting impactful daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Chapter 5. The Silver Wolf's call echoed for 3 days. Sarah felt it reverberating through the bond, through the ancient magic that had saved Kieran's life, rippling out across territories like waves from a stone dropped in still water. And the wolves answered. They came from everywhere, lone wolves who'd been hiding for years, fragments of destroyed packs, families who'd lost everything to Malcolm's purges. They came bearing the old symbols, speaking the old oaths, kneeling before Sarah and Kieran with tears streaming down their faces. The true king and queen had returned. The old magic lived again. But Kieran wasn't ready to lead them. Sarah sat beside his bed in the fortress's healer's wing, watching his chest rise and fall. The moon goddess's intervention had saved his life, but his body still needed time to recover from the trauma. The healer said he'd be fine in a week, maybe 2. They didn't have 2 weeks. You need to rest, she told him for the 3rd time that morning, pushing him back down as he tried to sit up. The healer said. The healers don't understand what's at stake. Kieran's voice was stronger than yesterday, but still rough. Malcolm's forces are regrouping. His remaining allies are fortifying their positions. If we wait, if we give them time to recover from the shock of what happened, then I'll handle it. Sarah met his eyes, saw the protest forming. You're not the only one with royal blood anymore, remember? The mate bond goes both ways. Your authority is mine now, and mine is yours. You've never led an army. I've been surviving impossible odds my entire life. I think I can manage. She softened her tone, taking his hand. You taught me that strength isn't just about physical power. It's about strategy, about knowing when to fight and when to wait. Trust me to do this. Trust me to protect what's ours while you heal. Through the bond, she felt his reluctance warring with his pride in her. Finally, he squeezed her hand. You're going to be a terrifying queen. Good. The realm could use some terrifying right now. She kissed his forehead and left before he could argue further. Outside the healing wing, Thomas and Lily waited, the orphaned pups who'd revealed themselves as the general's children. They'd barely left the fortress since the confrontation, organizing the arriving loyalists with surprising competence for children so young. Your Majesty, Thomas said formally, then hesitated. Or should we call you something else? The old traditions say the Alpha Queen has her own title. Sarah is fine when we're alone. She crouched to their eye level. How many have arrived? 237 as of this morning, Lily reported. More are coming every hour. They're camping in the valley below the fortress. Her young face was serious beyond her years. They're waiting for orders, Your Sarah. They want to fight. Then we'll fight. Sarah stood, her mind already working through logistics. But smart. Malcolm still has the capital, still has the majority of the standing army. We can't win through brute force. What's your plan? A voice asked from behind her. Sarah turned to find Darius approaching, looking uncomfortable in the formal clothes someone had found for him. Since bending the knee, the Moonridge Alpha had made himself surprisingly useful, organizing supplies, mediating disputes between packs that had old grievances, generally making himself indispensable. She still didn't fully trust him. But she needed every capable wolf she could get. We use what we have, Sarah said. Speed, surprise, and the old magic. Malcolm's forces are expecting a conventional assault, armies clashing, territory battles, the usual. We give them something they can't prepare for. Such as shadow walkers. Sarah felt the power stirring under her skin, the gift of her Silvermoon bloodline. The old families had abilities that have been dormant for generations. But the mate bond awakened mine. What if it can awaken others? Darius's eyes widened. You want to recreate the ancient warrior traditions. The ones from the legends. Not recreate. Remember. Sarah started walking, the others following. Gather the pack leaders. Anyone descended from the old bloodlines. We're going to see what other gifts the moon goddess left sleeping in our blood. Over the next 2 days, Sarah discovered she was right. The mate bond's awakening had triggered something in the wolf world. Wolves who'd never shown any special abilities suddenly found they could do remarkable things. A woman from the Ironwood line could communicate with trees, sense movement through root systems. A man descended from the Stormcallers could read weather patterns, predict storms hours in advance. 2 sisters from a scattered northern pack discovered they could share thoughts, coordinate attacks with perfect precision. The old magic was returning, pack by pack, wolf by wolf. And Sarah led them, surprising herself with how naturally command came. Years of surviving alone had taught her to read situations quickly, to spot weaknesses and opportunities. Now she applied those skills to strategy, to leadership, to forging 200 disparate wolves into something resembling an army. Kieran watched from the fortress walls when his healers allowed it, and through the bond, Sarah felt his pride and love warming her even from a distance. But she also felt his pain. His frustration at being sidelined. His fear that she'd be hurt while he was too weak to protect her. I'm not alone anymore, she sent through the bond. I have you. I have them. We're stronger together. I know, he sent back. Doesn't mean I have to like watching you prepare for war while I'm stuck in bed. Then heal faster, Your Majesty. I could use you beside me. On the third day, a messenger arrived from the capital bearing Malcolm's seal. Sarah read the letter twice, her blood running cold. He has the children, she told the assembled pack leaders, her voice tight with fury. Emma, Thomas, and Lily's younger siblings, the ones we thought were safely hidden in the countryside. Malcolm's forces found them. The room erupted in angry voices. Sarah let them rage for a moment, then raised her hand for silence. He's offering a trade, she continued. Me for them. I surrender myself, and he releases the children unharmed. It's a trap, Darius said immediately. He'll kill you and the children both. I know. Sarah set down the letter. But he's also backed himself into a corner. If he harms those children, he loses any remaining claim to moral authority. The old families won't stand for it. Killing children is forbidden by the ancient laws, even in war. So what do we do? Thomas asked, his young face pale with fear for his siblings. Sarah looked at each pack leader in turn, seeing the same question in their eyes. They'd follow her, she realized. Whatever she chose, they'd stand with her. The weight of that trust was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. We give him what he wants, she said finally. Me. But not how he expects. She laid out her plan, watching comprehension dawn on their faces. It was risky, possibly suicidal. But it was also the kind of bold move Malcolm wouldn't anticipate, because it required a level of trust and coordination his fear-based regime could never achieve. I don't like it, Darius said when she finished. Too many things can go wrong. Do you have a better idea? He didn't. None of them did. Then we move at dawn. Sarah started to dismiss them, then paused. And someone needs to tell Kieran. Because he's going to hate this plan. Absolutely not. Kieran was out of bed, ignoring his healer's protests, standing in front of Sarah with his arms crossed. You're not surrendering yourself to Malcolm. I don't care if it's a trick or a trap or the most brilliant strategy ever conceived, you're not doing it. It's not your decision. Sarah kept her voice calm, though the bond carried her own fear and determination. I'm the Alpha Queen. These are my people too. And I'm not letting children die because I was too scared to risk myself. Then we find another way. We assault the capital, we. And how many die in that assault? How many loyalists who just found the courage to stand with us? She moved closer, taking his hands. Kieran, I've been running and hiding my entire life. Let me do this. Let me be brave for once. You're the bravest person I know, he said roughly. But bravery without caution is just foolishness. Sarah, if something happens to you, if I lose you, his voice broke. I just got you. I can't lose you now. Through the bond, Sarah felt his terror. Felt the echo of old losses, Alara, his guards, everyone he'd ever cared about. She was asking him to trust her with the thing he feared most. But that's what mates did. They trusted even when it terrified them. You won't lose me, she promised. I'm coming back. We're coming back, me and those children. And then we're going to take back your throne together. She pulled him close, resting her forehead against his. Trust me. Please. She felt his surrender through the bond before he spoke it aloud. I hate this plan. I know. If anything goes wrong, if he touches you, then you'll feel it through the bond and come for me. She smiled against his chest. See? Safety net. That's not funny. Little bit funny. He pulled back to look at her, and despite everything, his lips twitched. You're going to be impossible as a queen, aren't you? Absolutely impossible. You should probably get used to it now. He kissed her then, deep and desperate, pouring 5 years of loneliness and loss and hope into it. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Sarah saw acceptance in his eyes. "Come back to me," he whispered. "Always." Dawn broke cold and clear over the Blackstone fortress. Sarah stood in the courtyard wearing simple clothes, her hands bound in front of her with silver chains, real ones this time, though the locks had been tampered with. She could break free in seconds if needed. Around her, 50 wolves waited in the shadows, invisible to anyone watching from above. Shadow walkers, tree speakers, storm callers, the old bloodline gifts used in concert, creating a net of awareness and power that surrounded her like armor. Darius would lead them. Despite everything, despite his past betrayals, Sarah found she trusted him for this. He'd proven himself over the past days, and more than that, through the bond, she'd felt Kieran's assessment of him. Reformed. Genuine. Seeking redemption. "Ready?" Darius asked quietly. Sarah nodded. "Let's go get those children." They walked through the forest toward the meeting point Malcolm had specified, a clearing half a day's journey from the capital. Sarah kept her head down, playing the part of a defeated prisoner, while her senses stretched out through the shadow-walking gift. She felt them before she saw them. 50 wolves, maybe more, hidden in the trees. Malcolm wasn't taking chances. The clearing opened before them, and there he was, Kieran's uncle, looking older and more tired than during their confrontation. He held Emma by the shoulder, while Thomas and Lily stood nearby with guards' hands on them. The children looked terrified but unharmed. "Sarah Blackwood," Malcolm called out. "Or should I say, Queen Sarah. My spies tell me you've been quite busy organizing my nephew's little rebellion." "Let the children go," Sarah said, not bothering with pleasantries. "That was the deal. The deal was you for them. Alone. Not accompanied by," he gestured to the trees. "What is it, 50 wolves? Did you think I wouldn't sense them? Did you think I'd come alone?" Sarah countered. "I'm not stupid, Malcolm. Neither are you. So let's skip the posturing and make this simple. Release the children, and we'll discuss terms." "Terms?" Malcolm laughed, bitter and harsh. "You're in no position to negotiate terms. One word from me and my wolves tear those children apart. And one word from me and my wolves tear you apart." Sarah felt her pack moving into position, surrounding Malcolm's forces. "We can all die here today, or we can all walk away. Your choice." For a long moment, Malcolm stood frozen, calculating odds. Then Emma whimpered, and something flickered across his face, regret, maybe, or remembered humanity. "I didn't want this," he said quietly. "Any of this. I wanted to save the kingdom, to modernize, to move us forward. But Kieran wouldn't listen. The old families wouldn't change. So I did what I thought was necessary." "You murdered innocents," Sarah said. "You slaughtered entire packs, including children. There's no justification for that." "I know." The admission seemed to cost him. "I know what I've become. What I had to become to hold on to power." He looked at the children in his grasp, his expression haunted. "These 3, they're so young. Too young to be caught up in this. Too young to die for their parents' choices." "Then let them go," Sarah urged gently. "End this cycle. Let these children live." Malcolm's hand loosened on Emma's shoulder. For a heartbeat, Sarah thought he might actually do it. Then a wolf howled from the trees, not one of hers, one of his, and everything went to hell. "It's a trap," someone screamed. Malcolm's wolves burst from cover, attacking not Sarah's forces but the children. They'd been planning this all along: kill the general's heirs, eliminate any potential rallying point for the resistance. Sarah moved without thinking, shadow-walking across the clearing in an impossible burst of speed. She reached Emma first, pulling the child behind her as a wolf lunged with teeth bared. Darius was there, intercepting the attack. More loyalists poured from the trees, and suddenly the clearing was chaos: wolves snarling, bodies colliding, blood on the grass. Sarah fought with every skill she possessed, protecting the children while her wolves fought to reach them. She felt Thomas's terror through the bond he'd formed with Kieran. The boy was cornered, 3 wolves advancing. A massive black shape burst into the clearing. Kieran, in his alpha form, was magnificent and terrible. He tore through Malcolm's wolves like paper, his power no longer restrained or hidden. Behind him came more loyalists, dozens of them, answering their king's call to battle. "I told you to stay at the fortress." Sarah sent through the bond, dropping another attacker. "And I told you I'd come if you were in danger." His mental voice was fierce, protective. "We protect each other. That's what mates do." Together, they fought their way to the children, forming a protective circle with Darius and the other loyalists. Malcolm's forces were breaking, falling back, realizing they were outmatched and outmaneuvered. Then Sarah saw it, 3 wolves breaking through their lines, heading straight for Lily. She ran, but she was too far away, her shadow walking still too new to control perfectly. Darius threw himself in front of the child. The wolves hit him all at once, teeth and claws tearing into his flesh. He fought back, managing to down one, but the other 2 were relentless. "No." Sarah reached them, pulling the wolves off with brutal efficiency. But the damage was done. Darius lay on the ground, blood pooling beneath him, his breathing shallow and labored. "Why?" Sarah demanded, kneeling beside him. "Why would you?" "Redemption," Darius gasped, blood on his lips. "You said everyone deserves a second chance." "Wanted to, earn mine." His eyes found hers, and she saw genuine emotion there. "You would have been a great mate. In another life. Another world." "Darius. Tell Blackwood, he won. Tell him. I'm sorry. For everything." His hand found Lily's, squeezing gently. "Keep them safe. The children. They're the future." His hand went slack. Through the bond, Sarah felt Kieran's grief. Darius had been his childhood friend, once, before the coup twisted everything. "I will," Sarah promised the dead wolf. "I swear it." Around them, the battle was ending. Malcolm's forces were in full retreat, and the old wolf himself stood alone in the center of the clearing, bleeding and beaten but still standing. Kieran shifted back to human form, walking toward his uncle with deadly purpose. "It's over." "It's never over," Malcolm said wearily. "Someone will always want power. Will always believe the ends justify the means. I'm just the first. There will be others. Then we'll face them together." Kieran gestured to the assembled wolves, loyalists and a few of Malcolm's former followers who'd switched sides during the battle. Not through fear and oppression, but through honor and unity. The old ways and the new, combined. "Naive," Malcolm spat. "Just like I always said. You'll fail, nephew. And when you do, everything I tried to prevent will come crashing down. Maybe." Kieran's voice was sad but firm. "But at least I'll fail with honor intact. Can you say the same?" Malcolm had no answer. Guards came forward to take him into custody, and he went without resistance, suddenly looking every one of his years. Sarah gathered the children, checking them for injuries. They were shaken but whole, clinging to her with desperate relief. She held them close, feeling her own tears fall. These pups had lost so much: parents, innocence, security. But they'd survived. Just like her. "We should get them back to the fortress," Kieran sent through the bond. "They need food, rest, safety." "We all do," Sarah agreed. "But first." She raised her head and howled, the silver wolf's call echoing across the clearing. One by one, the other wolves joined her, old bloodlines and new, loyalists and former enemies, all united in acknowledging the new order. The true king and queen ruled together now. 3 weeks later, Sarah stood in the throne room of the capital, watching workers remove Malcolm's additions and restore the ancient carvings. Kieran had wanted to rush the coronation, but Sarah insisted on doing it right, with proper ceremony, with all the old packs represented, with time for the realm to heal. She wore formal robes now, though she'd drawn the line at jewelry. She was still getting used to being called Your Majesty, instead of that scarred woman or the aggressive she-wolf. You're thinking too loud, Kieran said, coming up behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist. I can feel your anxiety through the bond. I'm not anxious. I'm contemplating. Same thing. He kissed her neck, and she felt his amusement. You're going to be a wonderful queen, Sarah. Everyone can see it. Why can't you? Because a month ago I was sleeping in tavern rooms and getting kicked out of packs. She turned in his arms. And now I'm supposed to rule a kingdom? It's absurd. No more absurd than a king who pretended to be an Omega for 5 years. He smiled. We're writing new rules, remember? No wolf judged by appearance or strength alone. Just by the content of their character. It was a good rule. Their first official decree, in fact. Already they were seeing the effects, Omegas treated with respect, outcasts welcomed back, the rigid hierarchy that had dominated pack life for generations beginning to soften. The children are asking when they can come home, Kieran said. They're with the healers, but bring them here. Sarah's voice was firm. This is their home now. Ours and theirs. We're a family. Through the bond, she felt Kieran's joy. They'd formally adopted Thomas, Lily, and Emma, along with the other orphans they'd discovered. The royal family would be unconventional, but then again, so were they. A commotion at the throne room entrance made them both turn. A messenger pushed through the guards, looking harried and worried. Your Majesties, the messenger gasped, dropping to one knee. Urgent news from the Eastern Territories. What is it? Kieran asked, immediately alert. A proclamation, sire. The messenger held out a sealed scroll. From someone claiming to have a right to challenge your rule. Sarah felt ice slide down her spine. She and Kieran exchanged glances, then Kieran took the scroll and broke the seal. His face went pale as he read. What does it say? Sarah demanded. It's from my cousin. My father's brother's son. I thought he died in the purges. Kieran's hand shook slightly. He's alive. And he's claiming that as the son of the elder brother, his bloodline takes precedence over mine. He's challenging my right to the throne. That's ridiculous. You were crowned by your father. The succession was legal. Under normal circumstances, yes. But he's citing the old laws, the ones that say in times of crisis, the strongest of the royal bloodline should rule. Kieran met her eyes. He's calling for a trial of fangs. Single combat to determine the true king. Sarah's wolf rose, protective and fierce. Then we fight. Together. The mate bond makes us stronger. The trial has to be one-on-one. No assistance, no interference. Just 2 wolves, fighting until one submits or dies. He crumpled the scroll. And from what I remember, my cousin Aldrich was always the better fighter. Stronger, faster, more aggressive. If he's been training these past 5 years while I've been hiding. Then we train harder, Sarah said fiercely. We use the bond, we use the old magic, we use everything we have. You're not losing this throne, Kieran. Not after everything we fought for. What if it's not about winning? Kieran's voice was quiet. What if Aldrich would actually be a better king? What if the moon goddess is testing us, asking us to step aside for someone worthier? Stop. Sarah grabbed his face, forcing him to look at her. You are worthy. You've proven that 100 times over. And we don't know anything about this Aldrich, where he's been, what he wants, whether his claim is even legitimate. We investigate, we prepare, and we face this challenge together. Understand? Through the bond, she poured her confidence into him, her absolute certainty that he was meant to be king. Felt his fear and doubt gradually give way to determination. Together, he agreed finally. Whatever comes, we face it together. They turned to look out the throne room windows, toward the eastern territories where this new threat waited. Somewhere out there, a hidden royal prepared to challenge everything they'd built. But Sarah had fought too hard and lost too much to give up now. She was the last of Silvermoon, the Alpha Queen, mate to the true king. She'd survived massacres and conspiracies and her own crushing loneliness. She could survive this too. Let him come, Sarah said, silver light beginning to glow around her hands as her power answered her resolve. Let this cousin come with his challenge and his claim. We'll show him what happens when you threaten a bonded pair. Beside her, Kieran's eyes blazed gold, his own power rising to meet hers. We'll show them all. And in the distance, like an answer to their defiance, a wolf howled, unfamiliar and powerful and full of promise. The challenge had been issued. The game was far from over. But this time, Sarah and Kieran would face it not as a hidden king and a rejected outcast, but as what they truly were. Mates. Partners. Rulers. And gods help anyone who stood in their way. The end. To be continued. Thank you for watching this video. Subscribe, like and share this video to continue listening to this type of story daily and also, to appreciate this community too. I would like to hear your wonderful opinion about this story. Please comment below.